Gozeiz, Shearing. Okay. In the Mishkan, the first 11 malachas were a part of making the dye and dissolving the dye. Nothing was used yet. We didn't have any material, but meanwhile, so we had the first 11 malachas that we did until now. So we prepared the ground. The different plants were planted for the dye, for the coloring of the different wools, and so then they had the harvest, and then they had the perfecting it, and then they made it into cakes, and then they dissolved it in boiling water. The same process as the Mishnah speaks about when it's described as preparing bread and baking. So instead of cooking as the last step, baking was the last step. That was the process of making bread. Now we come to the process of making material. So there were different colored wools, and they were processed until you were able to make them into yarn, into threads, and then they were woven and made into curtains. And these curtains were used as the covering of the Mishkan, and also as the paroches, as the separation between holy and Kodesh HaKadoshim, holy of holies, where the Oren was. Then you had the curtain that was in the entrance of the Mishkan, the entrance of the. So this is all the process of preparing the wool. So number one is shearing. Shearing is, as we see in the picture in 185, is removing the wool from the sheep in order to have that wool to use for making the materials. So this is Av Malacha. Principal Malacha is shearing the wool with a special tool from a live animal or from the hide of an animal if one needs the wool. So this is the Av Malacha. So whether it is still on the animal or if it was the whole hide is off the animal and you need the wool, there too would be this malacha of shearing. What are the toldos? Page 186 is plucking a feather of a bird by hand. And how does it apply to us? But also, so basically it is the outer covering of something living. Removing that goes into this category. So this would also apply to a human being. We have our outer coverings, surface, that would include our hair and our nails, or a wart, or pimples. All of this would go into this category. Okay. This would apply both to hair and also to nails. So for hair, we would have scissors, and also any other material that is a hair remover. So there are different creams, powders that also remove hair. This would be bodily hair. So all of this, whether it's the hair of the head or any other part of the body, removing that goes into this category. This is forbidden on Shabbos.
That's why you can use a hairbrush.
Yeah, we're going to come to that. Okay, so I just brought some, so that would be with the hair, and then we have also with nails. So whether it is, so for hair also, we also have a tweezer. This would be for pulling hair from eyebrows or any other purpose which a tweezer is used to remove hair. So using all of this on Shabbos would be a malacha. This would also, now, if you do it by hand, it would be rabbinic unless the normal way of removing it is by hand. So where would there be removing hair by hand where that would be the usual way of doing things? So it's interesting that the Talmud gives an example. If someone has a white hair, they get very, very upset with the white hair. I get everybody doesn't try hearing. So if someone would have a white hair, so then they would be picking up that individual hair and then pulling it out by hand, as the Gemara describes, because that would be the normal thing under such circumstances. You used to also have a mirror that used to have a sharp edge to it, which the purpose was you looked in the mirror, and if you didn't like something in your hair, you would go to the edge of the mirror, which was like a razor sharp, and just do that. So there was a time when having such a mirror on Shabbos and using it on Shabbos was something that was prohibited rabbinically because it would lead to fixing your hair. But that no longer applies. I don't think anyone has such a mirror. So that doesn't apply today. So now what happens if one does pull their hair? Does anyone have it? Just people who have habits of pulling hair, they can put their hair until it comes out. So then Shabbos cannot be done. We're concerned about pulling out the hair. Now, with the hair, we also have to fix the hair. So we have a comb. Now, the comb has very stiff bristles. With some of a finer comb, they're very close together. So if one were to use this on Shabbos, what would we expect at the end of combing the hair? What would we expect on the comb?
Hair.
That's right, because if there was any knots in the hair, any resistance in the hair, so the comb would pull it and then pull it out. That would be, so to begin with, when you are combing your hair, to begin with there's going to be loss of hair, and therefore you cannot use a comb on Shabbos. What about a brush? So this too is stiff enough that if there's any resistance, it's going to pull the hair. Now, did anyone hear about something that would make it permissible to use on Shabbos to fix your hair?
My son in the store.
Shabbos brush. Okay.
Wow.
They did not have the Shabbos brush, but they do have. This is a baby brush. So for a baby brush, they are concerned. So what they're assuming is, I don't know, I didn't try, I guess I should have had someone try experiment with this to see what happens if you use this brush. This was the most soft brush. When I went to the store to buy a brush for the class, I asked for a baby brush, and they did not have the brush that I had in mind to sort of have that. It's longer bristles, and they're softer. This is a little more, has more body to it. I'll have to ask at home if someone should experiment and see what happens, when we use this brush. But the idea of the brush is that they do give a heter permissibility. This would be to use a soft brush that if it does get resistance, it's just going to go over it instead of pulling through it. So using this brush, so this one, if there is any resistance, it's going to pull the hair out. This is stiff, it's strong. This one is meant for baby, that when you are going to be combing the baby's hair, it's not going to be pulling the baby's hair. That's what it's meant to do. If it is or so or not, this particular brand, I don't know. I'll have to find out. But this is the idea. And also when they had a Shabbos brush, So this was the idea of the Shabbos brush, is that it's not going to be a soft brush that's, when it comes to resistance, it's not going to pull it, but rather go over it. So that's the idea of a Shabbos brush.
And it's completely permissible.
So again, you would have to try it in the weekdays
Okay.
and see what results you get. Some people have hair that sheds easily. Some people have stronger that it stays well attached. So again, that is if it's wet, not wet, there are different circumstances. So this is, if you are going to be using a Shabbos brush that says Shabbos brush or baby brush, you would have to experiment during the week to see, after you've used the brush, do you have to clean the brush or not? So if again, idea would be psichresha, means that if it's definitely going to pull hair, then you definitely can't use it. If there are times that you do use it and hair is not pulled, sometimes it does, so then you can still use it because we're assuming that's going to go according to the majority of time. The majority is not pulling hair because your brush is clean. No question.
Yeah. What about there's a comb, like it's very wide, like the teeth are very wide, it's like just five teeth.
Yes.
It's to open up the curl.
You see, but what's going to happen is so strong that if it does come, the hair does get tangled. The hair does get
It
knots.
just open up like the curls. You know
It's-
what I'm talking about?
It what?
It open up the curls. It's like there's just like five big teeth.
Yes.
You know what I'm
So
talking
it's-
about?
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Okay. Maybe I
So,
can bring it to class and you tell me.
But again, the halacha is if it has stiff bristles, the teeth of if the teeth of the comb are strong, but we're assuming that you're going to go through the hair, there's going to be resistance, it's just going to pull. So what happens if you use that comb on your hair?
Mhm.
Is it clean? Not clean?
Yeah, there's no hair.
No
Just
hair.
Open up curls.
Just opens up curls. It's not meant to. And if it
Pulling hair.
pulling hair.
No.
So if you so again, I don't know what to answer you. Usually they say on a comb, the comb is out. Is that going to the category or not? I don't know, what it
Can I
does.
bring it and show you?
Yeah. No. So that would be with hair. And then we have again, people who sort of play with their hair and they know that after they play with their hair on Shabbos, during the weekdays, you get hair that's pulled out. If it's loose during the week, then Shabbos one should refrain from doing so. Now we have the nails. So now we have the scissors, nail scissors, the nail clippers. All of these would be a Shabbos. It would be a Torah prohibition because you are trimming the nails. Again, nails go into the same category, the outer covering surface of someone living, of a human being. And the same would also apply to our nail files. Again, it's taken off from the nail. All of this cannot be used on Shabbos.
And all the muktzah?
And then it's muktzah. All these things are muktzah, unless you're using it for permissible things. Now, what about biting nails? So biting nails is a rabbinic prohibition because it's not the normal way of how one removes the nails. One does not do so by biting; it will not come out even. If someone does have a habit of biting their nails when they get nervous or however else this habit comes about, so on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do so. So you would have to refrain and really be conscious of what you're doing with your hands on Shabbos, not to bite your nails. Someone came to the Rebbe, you see that by $1. This was actually a young man, and he asked the Rebbe for advice. What could he do against biting nails? So the Rebbe said, in the old country, they used to put something very, very bitter on the nails, and a person would put it in the mouth. It would not become, they would remember that they're biting their nails. I think there's actually a commercial product
Yeah.
that is a bitter
We sell
product.
it at Crown Hearts.
There is?
We sell it at Crown Hearts.
Okay, so there is a product that actually does have that same thing, but the Rebbe did not advise him to do it. The Rebbe said, wear gloves.
Wear gloves.
gloves, yeah, until he gets out of this habit. That was the Rebbe's advice. I guess those who have I guess for someone who's actually thinking about this, if those who have the nails that are added nails, so then again, one would not bite them. That would be a way of getting rid of this habit. As far as having those nails, as far as washing a tilas yadayim, so again, if they are in good shape, that's the way you want to wear them. So then it would not be considered a chatzitza, it would not be considered an interruption. And one could wash their hands for bread with such additional nails.
I wanted to ask, this is, basically, I was told that on Shabbos you can't like be doing this for Monday.
Doing that as well, what does it do? Does it crack the nail?
No, because it like takes dirt out. I don't know.
It's doing that.
Yeah.
Scraping nails from the inside is not recommended. They do say is you have short nails, you go like this, you just wipe the surface of the tips of the fingers, but not to clean the nails inside because it scrapes the nails inside. That would not be a Torah prohibition. It would be rabbinic scraping the nails, the same as what a file does on the outside. This would be doing scraping on the inside. So one should have their clean hands before Shabbos. Make sure they're clean well, so really you will not collect anything under the nails.
But what if you just have the habit?
But one should refrain from doing that on Shabbos. It's interesting by Farbrengen, by the Rebbe's Farbrengen, the Rebbe said to someone, he said, it's Shabbos today. So just mentioned that. I was assuming possibly he was pulling his beard or something of that sort. So again, for those who do, I guess with women, I guess it's less usual that they will pull their hair, but with a beard, it's more common that people sort of play with the beard. So on Shabbos, that one should refrain from doing so. Now, so here we have let's look on page 186 and just see what we have here. A detached nail. So sometimes with a detached nail, it could be very painful, and also there is the risk of it getting caught and then ripping it off, which is something we would not want to do.
But it also causes bleeding, right?
That's correct. Oh, yes. So therefore, removing a hangnail, which is mostly, let's look at 186, the second paragraph. A mostly detached nail, which is close to falling off, may be detached and removed by hand or with the teeth, not with a tool. If it's bothersome or likely to cause discomfort, if you know that you're afraid that it's going to get caught and it make it worse, so then you are permitted to remove it by hand, or you could bite it off. But again, because that's not the usual way, it's rabbinic, and again, the rabbinic, they put into the laws to begin with that if it's a cause of pain, they took away their restriction. So since biting nails or removing it by hand is not the normal way, it would not be a Torah prohibition, it is a rabbinic prohibition. So when there is a cause of pain, the Rabbanan were lenient and said that you could remove it in the unusual way, which would be by hand or by bite. Same would also be removing, next paragraph, 186, removing the small strip of skin which peels around the nail or anywhere else, such as the lips. So with the lips, so using your teeth to remove any loose skin on the lips would be a Torah prohibition, because that would be the normal way that people do this. So that would be something that it's not the same as other parts. It's not the same as nails, but this is usual. So therefore, one should maintain their lips throughout the week. Make sure that they don't dry. They don't start getting the little dried skin. So this is something. So all Shabbos you'll be thinking about. All week you'll be thinking about Shabbos to maintain good lips. It says about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So Beis Shammai, was thinking about Shabbos all week. Whenever he saw something that's good for Shabbos, he would buy it, even if it's on Sunday, he would say, this is for Shabbos. Then when he saw something better, he'd say, no. On Monday, he would say, one for the weekday, the one that I bought yesterday is going to be for the weekday, this one is going to be for Shabbos. So he was thinking about Shabbos all week. Any product that he was able to see that seems to be good for Shabbos, he would always buy it during the week. It says Hillel used to say, Hashem is going to provide for me on Friday. I'm going to go shopping. He's going to give me the best. So it says most people should go by Shammai. Hillel was like, he relied on Hashem, and Hashem always came through for him. That whatever he bought on Friday, that was the choicest that he could have gotten. But again, so maintaining your lips, you're thinking about Shabbos all week. That's a good thing. Warts. Again, this is dried skin. You cannot do that. Pimples on Shabbos, removing the skin, cannot be done on Shabbos. That's also an issue. Now, 187, removing a scab. Now, a scab is dried. It's not part of the skin itself. A scab is when someone has a wound and then there forms a scab over it, a hard surface over the place where the wound was, when it starts to heal. That is actually dried blood. So it's not part of the skin itself. So when it gets dried out, so removing that would not be removing skin, it's just taking that. But if it causes bleeding, then that is another issue, not to cause bleeding on Shabbos. So that itself, one has to know that it's completely, so don't touch it. That would be the first thing. Or if it's coming off already, where you see underneath it's completely dry, so then it would be okay. Now, using a tweezer on Shabbos could be used for removing a splinter. Could remove a splinter with a tweezer on Shabbos. Again, a splinter is something that got caught into your finger, removing it. So again, you have to be careful not to cause any bleeding. If you think it's that deep it's going to cause bleeding, then you'd have to wait until after Shabbos to remove it. But if it's something that you don't expect it to bleed, you're expecting it just to pull it out, so then you're allowed to use.
But if it hurts and it can.
Again, but not to cause bleeding. Not to cause bleeding. So you could even use a needle, even though a sewing needle is, or any other needle is muktzah on Shabbos, but to remove a splinter, it would be permissible. Again, there's more chance of causing bleeding with a needle than it is with a tweezer.
But if it hurts a lot and I think it might be bleed, can I ask a goy?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Cleaning dirty nails. It's forbidden to scrape so on page 187, the second paragraph, cleaning dirty nails, it's forbidden to scrape the dirt underneath the nails in order to avoid pulling the nail. If necessary, you can squeeze the flesh under the nail in order to remove the dirt. So this is it. And we have now someone who goes to the mikvah, so they should cut their nails. It should not be considered an interruption. If one forgot to do so, here we have, you could tell someone who is not Jewish to cut her nails, and one would have to consult with an halachic authority of what could and can't be done. Now, bottom of 187, combing hair or a wig. Now, comb or stiff brush, they'll certainly pull out the hair. Using a soft brush that does not pull out the hair for Shabbos. It's best to put aside a special brush for Shabbos, so you remember, if you have a Shabbos, if you are going to be using a brush, a soft brush, you should have one that's specifically for Shabbos. So when you use it, you remember that this is Shabbos, and therefore you'll do it in the Shabbos permissible way. So that itself is going to be a reminder. If you have one that's the same that you use throughout the week, then it's nothing to remind you that it's Shabbos. That you should be careful as you're brushing. But a Shabbos one, that itself tells you it's only for Shabbos, and therefore you'll do the Shabbos rules. Let's see, 188. someone who has, again, gently rubbing the hair, the head, the beard, piece of food that gets caught, careful not to pull out any hairs, to remove dandruff, which again, pieces of dry skin could be done, but not to remove the dandruff that's attached to the scalp. So that's something to be concerned about. Again, keep your hair healthy. You won't have these issues. Now we have. It used to be very popular to have gloves that were made with rabbit's fur. They used to have the inside of the glove was lined with rabbit's fur, and that was the part of the glove itself was of that. But it is so the rabbit that glove or scarf or shawl or something that's made from animal hair. One should not brush it because again we're going to be brushing out, removing the hair, especially the rabbit's fur sheds very easily. So brushing it would definitely remove the hair, the same as the hair. It's definitely going to happen. The same would also be pulling by hand. Also could not be done because that's the normal way. When something fluffs up, it becomes you just pull it off. So that patting a dog that we'll come to when we're taking care of pets. We're going to have a special class for pets.
What about wool? Things made out of wool. Can you take hair off of wool?
So if something is on the surface, we're going to have a special class for that as well. You're not allowed to dust out something it's cleaning. But if something's on the surface, you're allowed to remove it. So if someone does have dandruff that goes on their blouse, on their jacket, you are permitted to remove that by hand, not to, you're allowed to remove whatever is on the surface. Anything that's on the surface, you could remove.
Also the shoes? On the shachalach.
Well, for the shoes goes into another category, which we're going to cover as well.
Okay.
Because again, dusting the shoes or brushing the shoes, shining the shoes, that has its own, or with the suede, with a brush, brushing it out, all of this has its own class. Okay. So pulling hair from a garment made of fur. So I think that is not as popular as it used to be, I think. Right? People stay away from furs. Used to be very popular. People had minks. People still do have minks. I don't know. Imitation minks, sable, all the different furs. Usually those did not shed. Those were very sturdy. You could shake it out or whatever it may be, and they would not use it well. But the rabbits and the other kinds were some that do have to be careful on Shabbos. Now, we had in the beginning of the class, we had what about the removal of feathers? So plucking feathers on Shabbos is forbidden. It's done by hand. That's a normal way of how it's done. Now, what about when you eat chicken? How well are they cleaned?
Hopefully well.
Hopefully well. So that would be where is preparing it again. So it matters. It matters where you buy the chickens to begin with, how clean it's going to be. Now the issue is when they process the chicken, they remove the feathers before the salting. Soaking and salting is done first to remove the blood. So this is done before the soaking and salting. And if it were to use, now the feathers cling to the surface very tightly. In order to loosen them, one would have to use hot water, then everything becomes very loose, and then the feather removing machine would remove everything. You would get a completely clean product. However, you could not use hot water because you'll be cooking it before the soaking and salting. So now you're having the blood go back into the chicken itself. That would make it forbidden. So you cannot use hot water before the soaking and salting. So therefore what they use is cold water. With cold water, you're definitely not going to get a complete clean product. It's going to take out the major hair and it's going to leave the small hair behind. So what does the company do? So I went to a processing plant to see how it's done. And what they do is they have people standing with little knives and scraping each chicken. Depending on how long they tell each person they could scrape it, or how much they have to produce, or wherever the standard is there, depends on how clean of a chicken you're going to get. So those who want to have the clean product, they're going to tell their workers, spend more time and make sure that the chicken will come out clean. So you have different brands that for the housewife, or anyone who is preparing chicken, you'll see again, some of the brands will be, you'll get a cleaner product, there's less, again, when you're getting the product, it's soaked and salted already. You could put it in hot water. There you could clean it yourself. But to begin with, do you get a clean product or you get one that you have to work on? That depends on each brand or who was working on that chicken. So now we come to our question is, if you do have the feathers in your chicken that's cooked on your plate, can you remove the feathers? So I would recommend take the whole skin off. That would be, so you don't get into issues.
But you've seen feathers on cooked chicken?
The little, you have the roots, little tiny stumps. You don't see it. There's no feather actually there. But you will get little stumps that are like.
Oh, the little like hair. Ew.
Sorry.
I didn't realize that. Oh my god.
I'm sorry I made that, made you aware of that, so I guess nothing happened, since it's been cooked already, nothing happened, no harm will come to you if you eat it.
I've eaten it, yeah.
So I'm saying it's no harm coming to you, but those people who do want to remove it, so then again, becomes a question, are you allowed to do it on Shabbos because of borer, removing the unwanted from the wanted that we spoke about at an earlier class. So in this case, either you cut out that little piece that has the little things sticking out, so cut around, or take off the whole skin and don't eat it. If you see that it wasn't cleaned well, that would be the best recommendation. Combing an animal with a special comb on Shabbos would be forbidden because it does also remove the.
So how do you clean these feathers things off?
How do they do it? You have a knife. You're in the kitchen. You soak the chicken in hot water, and then you take, before you cook it, you soak it in hot water, and then you'll take the knife and scrape off whatever you see doesn't belong there, and they'll remove it. It'll come out very easily because it's in hot water, and it'll just come out. So that's the way to go. So after they've done the shearing of the wool, I will just give an introduction to the next step. After the shearing of the wool, so we have the wool that's been on the sheep is dirty. Before you go to any process of making it into wool into yarn, into threads, you have to have a clean product. So the next step is going to be to clean the wool. So the cleaning of the wool, that itself is the next malacha. So there's cleaning of the wool and flax. It's also going to be used. So it's called whitening or bleaching, because we have also the flax was whitened. We want to have the flax as linen. And part of the process of making the process of whitening the linen would be to take the flax and put them in an oven with a low temperature. And being with a low heat, that makes the flax white. So the malacha is called whitening, and we will call it washing. So whitening and washing are all, so there is melabain, is to whiten, lavan, white, melabain is to make white. That is the way the malacha is listed. And then you have koves with a samach at the end, which means to wash. So washing, there are 3 steps in washing. What are the 3 steps in washing? Number 1, if you want to wash a garment, make it wet. What are the wet? With the wet, it's going to make it wet. And what's that going to do? It's going to loosen the dirt inside. Mm-hmm. Next step is, what's the next step?
So
You scrub, like,
Scrubbing, that's going to now scrubbing,
scrubbing.
agitating, that's what our washing machine does, the agitating.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the third step is wringing. That does is all the dirty water that's inside, all the dirt that's inside is all going to come out. So in order to whiten it, you have 3 steps, and each of them is a separate malacha. In order to be considered a malacha, you don't have to do all 3 to be a malacha, but 1 step at a time. Making something wet, that itself is a malacha. If your intention is to clean, making it wet in order to dry your hands, that's the opposite of cleaning. And the same thing is scrubbing something. You get the dirt out, that's wet, that's a malacha. And then wringing something. So there, wringing has 2 malachas. It matters what your intention is. If your intention is to wring it in order to clean the garments, so your intention is to get rid of the water. You don't want the liquid that's inside because you want the garment to be clean. So that is the malacha of washing. If you do use the item because you want the water to come out in order to use the water, that was the malacha of disha, of threshing, removing something that's enclosed. So here we have the example of it be a sponge or a rag, where you don't want to, you're washing the surface, you want the liquid to come out to help you wash the surface, but you don't want to discard the liquid, but rather you want the liquid to be there to use it. In that case, it's not the malacha of whitening, of mechabes, but it is the malacha of disha, which is threshing, making use of what is absorbed. So the intention makes the difference of what kind of malacha it is. Okay, so this is the next malacha. It has a lot of details to it. I would want you to read it before 191 through 207. So that is the next malacha. Let me fill in my attendance. Okay, Diana, Yael, looks not here. Okay, Diana is here.
yeah, it's not here.
Yael is left. Petra is here, and Simcha was here. Okay, I left out. I left out some names. Surely I put it in. Yes, and Adina.
So did you not share it? It's
little pieces. It's dirty.
yeah.
It's dirty. You cannot put any water, no seltzer, no salt. Nothing. The cover Shabbos. You say the cover. You have to change. The cover Shabbos Kodesh. The honor of Shabbos, I'm going to go around like a stuff because in honor of Shabbos, I'm not going to go around with the stain because I cannot clean it. So that's the honor of Shabbos. And this everyone says the honor of Shabbos is clean. Nice. The honor of Shabbos, you get a stain, and just don't do it until you're able to change. Even though it's very until it's very until we're going to learn what could be done, what can't be done. This that is your kind of stain, that is how you're trying to get it out. You can't go. These are things you can't do, but there's things that you could do. Let's see. Okay, your name is Stephanie. And you joined us for. You're joining us for 2 weeks. Okay, so welcome.
Yeah, you don't say anything. I'm very excited.
That meeting last night.
Oh my god.
It's so cute.
So on Shabbos day,